A Sandy Hook elementary teacher, the parents of a slain Chicago teen. Tonight at the Capitol, these were the people who took the seats of honor next to First Lady Michelle Obama. Not long ago, that same seat was held by the police sergeant hailed as a hero in the Fort Hood massacre. But now she's claiming the president has turned his back on her. Some of the following images in this story may be difficult to watch. Here's ABC's chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross with a Nightline Investigates.
In the 3 years since, the attack at Fort Hood in Texas has been forgotten by many, but not by the victims. The people in the Army processing room that day who say they have been forgotten and neglected too. This is what they experienced, terror and chaos that has not been seen publicly until tonight in new footage obtained by ABC News, taken moments after the carnage ended.
Everyone is scrambling. Is chaos.
A few seconds after he started shooting is when I took a round to the chest.
There was a lot of heroes that day. Heroes that stayed on scene, that rendered first aid to the other victims.
13 people killed, including a pregnant soldier, and 32 shot, none of whom received the Purple Heart or any of the additional veterans' medical and financial benefits given those wounded or killed in war. Because the military, to the outrage of the victims, has apparently deemed this workplace violence.
It was no different than an insurgent in Iraq or Afghanistan trying to kill us.
The accused shooter, a U.S. Army Major, Nidal Hasan, identified in this photo by 3 of the victims, allegedly shouted Allah Akbar as he shot. He was only stopped by the bravery of a civilian police officer, Sergeant Kimberly Munley, and her partner, Sergeant Mark Todd, who opened fire and brought down the shooter.
He was not through. He had over 177 rounds still left on his person.
Sergeant Munley, hit 3 times and seriously injured, became known across the country as a hero. Even as she was still recovering, the White House arranged a hero's welcome for her and her partner at the State of the Union address 3 years ago. But now she says she feels she was used.
Betrayal would be a good word.
Munley told ABC News the president broke the promise he made to her that all of the victims and their families would be well taken care of.
So when he told you, we're going to take care of you, that did not turn out to be true?
No.
What would you say to the president?
If I were to see him again, again, it's not about me, but I would just beg him to please take care of.
At the heart of what has outraged Munley and other Fort Hood victims and led them to file this lawsuit is the military's decision not to award Purple Hearts and its insistence on calling the shooting workplace violence, despite Major Hasan's documented communications with al-Qaeda leader Anwar al-Awlaki, who has since been killed in a U.S. drone strike.
It was clearly an act of terrorism that occurred that day. There's no question in my mind, and I think the victims should be treated as such.
One of the victims, former Staff Sergeant Sean Manning, who still has bullets lodged in his body, says he has lost almost $70,000 in benefits otherwise available to those with combat-related injuries.
I mean, basically they're treating us like, I was downtown and got hit by a car.
Initially, an Army Review Board did classify Manning's injuries as combat-related, but that was then overruled by higher-ups in the Army.
I never would have thought that they would have basically neglected the people that were killed and wounded that day.
Sergeant Alonzo Lunsford was shot 7 times at Fort Hood and blinded in one eye. There are some bullets still in his body. As he saw where he was shot in the new video obtained by ABC News,
I saw my blood while I was laying.
Lunsford told us he still suffers every day from the physical and emotional pain of what he says was no different than being in a war zone.
It's a slap in the face, not only for me, but for all of the 32 that wore their uniform that day.
Some of the other victims from that day say they've had to go outside the military to get proper medical care.
We have stories of soldiers who were forced to go, had their parents find civilian doctors to get them proper medical treatment.
Among those named in the lawsuit is the Secretary of the Army, John McHugh, who told ABC News he was unaware of the soldiers' complaints until we asked him about it.
You had not heard that before?
I have heard of certain concerns, but not that they haven't been getting treatment that they care about. It is not our intent to have 2 levels of care for people who are wounded by whatever means in uniform.
As for the Purple Hearts, McHugh said the pending military trial of Major Hassan prevents the Army from awarding them to the victims of the Fort Hood shooting.
Giving Purple Hearts would
Now,
prejudice the process?
To award a Purple Heart, it has to be done by a foreign terrorist element. So to declare that soldier a foreign terrorist, we're told, would have a potentially profound effect on the ability to conduct the trial.
Are you satisfied with that, Secretary?
I think I've answered your questions repeatedly.
You don't think that's insensitive to the soldiers?
In a statement to ABC News, the Pentagon said survivors of the Fort Hood shooting are eligible for the same medical benefits as all service members. But some in Congress, including the chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, Michael McCaul, say they will introduce legislation to require the Fort Hood victims receive the Purple Heart and other benefits they say they are now being denied.